Next is approval of the minutes of February 13th, 2018. What is the pleasure of council?
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve the minutes from February 13th, 2018 regular session.
Second the motion.
Any additions, corrections, or questions? Hearing none. Erica?
Logan,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Gelwix,
Yes.
Drexel,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
So carried.
All right, next we have candidates for Planning and Zoning Board. I'll get this right. Planning and Zoning Commission Board vacancy. We have two applicants that have been forwarded to us, Eric Iverson and Ryan Taylor. Is there any comments staff wishes to make before we interview? None this time. Okay. Well, Eric will go with alphabetical. Would you please come forward and state your name and
Sit down or just stand here?
come up and sit down and relax.
Get you a glass of water too.
Yeah, you need it. Anyway, so tell us why you're interested in filling the position.
My name is Eric Iverson, and I have lived here for 20 years. Originally came here in 1990 to go to Western State and graduated in 2002. Left a little while. I was back and forth pretty much every weekend because I had a girlfriend here. Moved back within a year and have been working and living in the Valley ever since. I work construction, have my whole life. I build custom homes at the moment. I work for Kevin Tudor, and I am very passionate about building. Kind of crazy, it's pretty hard work, and I'm to the age where I'm starting to think that maybe I should be doing more directing than actual work, but I still love it, and I am very passionate now. And I recently bought my first home over next to Jim Miles' son, Billy, and love it over there, and have had most positive thoughts about joining this planning board and commission since I bought my house because of certain zoning things just in my little area, and wanting to learn more about how the whole system works. And I'm also very interested in trying to address most everybody's concern with affordable housing, and trying to come up with some good ideas there. So, questions for me?
Well, we're talking in group tonight.
Wow.
What are your long-term for codes and planning commission?
Long-term vision for codes. I don't really know the codes for the planning commission. It's something that I would hope to work with everybody on to learn and become more of an asset to the commission.
So what were the obstacles as far as codes were concerned when you went to purchase your own home?
There is an adjacent property that is zoned residential and is more or less currently being rented as commercial, and there's a lot of traffic in and out of there and stuff, and I have done a little bit of poking around to see what my rights are as far as what I can and can't do, and haven't got a whole lot of solid answers, so I figure starting the commission and learning how the whole thing works, I might be able to figure something out with the landowner.
Thank you, Eric.
Nobody's going to ask him how he's going to solve affordable housing in the valley? I mean, come on. No, I'm kidding. That would 30 seconds or less. 30 seconds or less.
I did sit in on a joint council and planning commission meeting almost a month ago now, and went back home, started doing a little bit of what other communities for affordable housing, and if they've solved it. And I grew up in Steamboat, which is very similar, but very similar to Crested Butte and Gunnison and the county. And they have been dealing with these issues hardcore for 20 years. I kind of feel like this place is at least 20 years kind of step back in time, which I love, don't get me wrong. I love Steamboat, but it kind of breaks my heart to see how developed it is now. And the biggest issue that I saw looking, just doing internet research on affordable housing was, do we accommodate all these people with limited space? And increasing the density is obviously an issue that you guys talked about last time, and trying to maintain the feel of the whole valley and mainly the town with the limited space that we all looked at on that map, to develop. And there's some unique ideas out there that cities that have high density already and nowhere to grow are dealing with these problems with the higher density housing, which, I mean, we all have in our minds pros and cons of that, but when it comes down to it, we're going to have a lot more people coming here. We got to kind of give and take there, you know what I mean? That's my take on affordable housing, but I look forward to discussion on it. I really love discussion groups, so.
We'll also find some action down the line. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here. Ryan, would you like to come forward?
What are we doing? Yeah, so I am a junior at Western State, Colorado University here. Grew up originally from Evergreen, Colorado, but I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas mostly, and moved to Raleigh, North Carolina when I was 16 years old to play junior hockey out there. And back to Colorado when I was 18, lived in Golden and went to community college for a few semesters there, and was looking around at schools and stumbled upon Western and moved up here, and it's for me. I love the small town here. I think the people here are so unique and different from anywhere I've been, and they're so friendly and willing to give their time to the people in the community here, the community as well. So like I said, moving here just 2 years ago, I've been able to get involved with some stuff in the Gunnison Vibrancy Initiative and really look at ways to bridge that gap in Western State and the downtown and the whole community. How can we make that better? How can we enhance this place for both students and community members? And so I think, at a bigger school, bigger institution, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. It's really taught me a lot about people skills and just going for it, shoot for the stars. So I think that's a really unique thing about this town and about this school, and that I'm all in love with here. And so this would be a huge learning experience for me. I've never done anything like this. I don't know a lot about it, honestly. I've done my research, in the last few weeks about it, but I think it's, again, a unique opportunity for a student at Western to be in a position like this and to really serve their community. So that's why, and I appreciate your consideration.
Questions for Ryan?
So what's your take on affordable housing then?
That, I'm sure I don't have as much as Eric there, but I think, it's definitely a hurdle we gotta jump through somehow. We want to preserve the feel of this town, obviously, don't want it to grow. And so I don't know, that's something I will definitely love to learn about and see what the struggles are and hopefully figure out some sort of solution to it. But I had more information on it.
So what inspired you, would you say, to apply for the commission?
So definitely working in the Gunnison Vibrancy Initiative, just talking to students and figuring out, what are ways that we can make this town better. And so I've been able to get involved with stuff in and around campus that don't specifically have to do with, building up the city or the downtown, but just seeing that connection there, and it's really inspired me. And also growing up in bigger cities and bigger towns, and then coming here is the first time I've ever lived in a small town. It's, like I said, really unique. and so I've just fallen in love with that.
Any other questions for Ryan?
Do you have a term vision for codes and for the planning commission?
Yeah, so I'd like to see, especially the downtown, like I said, New Denison, again, become a vibrant place where people are out doing stuff. You know, so college students are down there hanging out, and community members are down there hanging out, and so you have this even more unique opportunity where they can mingle and mesh more so than they do now. I think that's what I would really like to see, is just a more vibrant tie between the college, the high school, and people that lived here, you know, their whole life or have moved here, graduated from school, whatnot, and decided to stay. So that would be my long-term goal to see happen with the planning and zoning code, is making that downtown and the ties between the community better.
Thank you.
Anything else for Ryan?
Well, if you at this position, do you have ideas as to how you could be involved in some capacity besides the Gunnison Vibrancy Initiative? I'm just curious.
So I play on Western State's hockey team. Darren Glover, I don't know if any of you know who he is. He's a local here. And he's just given his time and helped coach us. And so I think the hockey community here is really big, and I'd like to see that grow as well and become better. In terms of the city and everything, I've been working on a project with some schools to create a space that's really caters to college students, high school students even. It's not your typical bar scene. People under 21 can still get in and hang out, and I think that's a cool opportunity that presents itself in this town as well. You know, there's cool stuff that's here, but I think there could be something better to kind of bridge that gap as well. So.
Thank you. I like your ideas on these other things, so
Thank you, Jim.
it's good.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Jim.
Please have a seat in the audience. I'm going to ask Mr. Westbay, is there a planning commission meeting tomorrow night?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So whoever is lucky, depending on your point of view, you have a meeting tomorrow night in this place at 7?
Yes.
I wanted to share that, and I think from my point of view, it's always good to have multiple candidates, and it's always a welcome sight to have dedicated candidates who would do a good job. And for your information, in addition to what you might think of, the Planning Commission will have another 2 openings in May, which may or may not be something that you would consider, but that might be something on your thing as well. Any discussion from council members at this point, or I thought that we'd go through a roll call vote of our choice. Whoever got a majority would be elected, if that is a procedure.
That's fine. I think the only thing I would add is that I encourage whoever doesn't take the seat tonight, I would encourage to definitely look into it in May, because I think you're both excellent candidates. I love the fact that, you know, Western wants to be involved. I think that's fantastic. I love the, longtime builder and community member wants to be involved. So, yeah, it is good to have multiple candidates, but it's also hard.
We're not here for easy decisions.
No.
Okay, without further discussion, Erica, will you roll call poll the
Sure. Miles? Oh, Miles. Goix?
Brian Taylor?
Drexel?
Eric Iverson.
Morrison?
Eric Iverson.
Logan?
Doesn't even matter, right?
You still get to vote.
Brian Taylor.
Thank you both, appreciate it, and Eric, you're busy tomorrow night.
Yeah, you got something to do.
Yeah.
keep you busy if you want to.
All right. Next item is ordinance number 1, series 2018, for second reading.
Ordinance number 1, series 2018, asked to be read by title only by the city attorney.
Ordinance number 1, series 2018, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gunnison, Colorado, amending Title 8 Business Regulation, Chapter 8.50 Marijuana Business Licensing Regulations, Sections 850-20, 850-80, and 850-90 of the City of Gunnison Civil Code.
I move adoption of ordinance number 1, series 2018, on second and final reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Erica?
Gelwix.
Yes.
Drexel.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Miles.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
carried.
Okay. Next item is ordinance number 2, series 2018, on first reading, clarifying language in sales and use tax.
I'll introduce, oh geez, Bob, I'm sorry.
No problem. No skin in the game.
I'll introduce ordinance number 2, series 2018, and I by title only by the city attorney.
Ordinance number 2, series 2018, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Gunnison amending ordinance number 10, series 2017.
I'll move adoption of ordinance number 2, series 2018 on first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or any staff comment?
I just want to say I apologize. I think the ordinance also put me to sleep, not just you guys.
We were riveted.
Yeah, we deleted some sections and then there were some references that policy
Didn't get
didn't move. So I apologize for that.
Sorry. Erica?
Drexel.
Yes.
Morrison.
Yes.
Logan.
Yes.
Miles.
Yes.
Gelwix.
Yes.
So carried.
All right, next is discussion and direction to staff on Opportunity Zone, which is a short term, knowing about it, and the deadline is like manana.
Understanding.
Oh, understanding it, don't
Yeah,
try.
don't try.
It's all A.
Well, speaking of understanding, as you're aware, we have a new tax law within the country referred to as the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was passed in December of 2017. So I think in January, the Treasury Department began actually looking at what came out of Congress, and there were a provision written into it that essentially created an investment in communities that, quote, had uneven economic recovery and a persistent lack of growth. I don't think that's us, but they also quantified that in terms of a map for communities that particularly had income that was a little bit below average. We qualify. Also, there's a point system that was awarded, so we definitely qualify. And the other component of it is there the opportunity to invest here? And basically, this creates an incentive for capital gains tax, where that could be waived with an investment. This is a fast-moving trade, and over the last couple of weeks, we've got emails from CML and others. It's an OEDIT program. And so the ICE Lab has been looking hard at this. They've essentially prepared the application and looking for letters of support. We actually received letters of support from our delegation. Julie Baca was just in D.C. and received some nice letters for this. So this is an opportunity. It's certainly not a panacea. You have to be making capital gains and have kind of a unique investment to take advantage of this. But I think we would be in a good position and could benefit. There's no downside. There's no cost. And so we would provide a letter of support for this. We have some background information on this. So we've all been discovering what it is. So some of the background has been evolving quickly in the last week or two as well.
I think the most intriguing thing that I know about it is that there is, at least in the that I've read, opportunity to obtain support for infrastructure, which would include expansion of utilities, which is a major problem right now in our community. Hopefully, that is one of the things that we might be able to pursue.
Yeah, it depends if we can find the right investor with the right interest. And we do have letters of support from a couple of different investors, not about a specific project, but interested in the opportunity.
Just might want to just comment that at Region 2, we had a meeting on the 3rd, and a great deal of confusion about what was going on. The City of Delta reported they didn't receive the email for 2 days ago. And so there were a lot of confusion. Some way it's based on also the census tract.
It is. Oh, yeah, it is.
And it's quite interesting, but I'm glad that we have a person in as well.
I think CML, certainly tried to get information to everybody.
10 days ago was about when we found out.
And that's about when we got it.
Yeah.
It's a fast-moving train.
In areas near us, which there's a large area in the northern San Luis Valley of Saguache County and so forth that runs all over. We're the only, and it's literally the city limits of Gunnison in Gunnison County, period. I pulled up the track. So any project with the limits would be qualifying in terms of whatever is available through this program. Right. And whatever is available is a big question.
It just the governor will be making a decision, getting this down to, I think, 125, 127 communities, of the qualified communities within
Now,
the
is
state.
there a dollar amount type?
No.
I didn't see it, but
It's implied.
You can save something on taxes if you are in the right profile.
and that's why it's also connected to the enterprise zone in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's it. So the enterprise zone, what we were referred to was the zone, which is Region 10 in our area, we were referred to them as a point of contact for more information. I think Michelle was getting information as we were getting it.
Yes.
So
Lots of good.
the opportunity, when I was with Leah the other week, and Sam simply introduced me to Mr. Hartstall, the director of DOLA, and so we were able to chat in the hallway.
Would you like a formal motion of support?
I think, yeah, just a simple motion to send the letter.
I move to direct the city manager to sign a letter of support to be considered for opportunity zone designation by governor. Thank you, Bird.
Second motion.
Any other discussion? Erica?
Morrison,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Gelwix,
Yes.
Drexel.
Yes.
Next item up is discussion of the IOOF Park RFP in the context of the final version of the vibrancy project in downtown.
Great. Well, we're excited to really do two things tonight. Ask for your feedback, and again, thank you, council. This is a project where just about all of you have participated through from start to finish. So there's hopefully nothing that's a surprise in this. So looking for your feedback, and do you have any questions? Because this is still a draft, and we're putting it out on the street for feedback in the community. And need to come back on March 13th for adoption of this, and again, doing that through a simple resolution, kind of carrying the same weight as an amendment to your strategic plan and giving us the formal direction to begin implementation, which in some ways we kind of are in terms of beginning to put some feelers out around specific ideas. The other piece of this is we have a draft RFP at Park, and this is again is putting a request for proposals out on the street to receive some cost estimates for what it would take to design some of the elements that are proposed in the project. So again, no commitment of taking action, but it gives us some pricing information to kind of springboard us and to begin implementation of a couple of high priority actions within the plan. So didn't have a PowerPoint since you've been intimately involved, but I wanted to kind of just reference and walk through the document. We may also have a few people in the room that are kind of interested in the plan, and we can pause anywhere that you might want, and Ben will help me kind of go to a few different points. A couple of ago we had, Ben, if you wouldn't mind going to page 29 of 220 in the packet, we met with the Downtown Leadership Committee and again seeked their feedback. A couple areas where they thought needed further elaboration was first on the why, and a section in there, and asked for a little bit more elaboration on the purpose and what was behind it, and we attempted to do that. And then also on the next page, we further elaborated on the community engagement, which was pretty extensive when you think about it from start to finish, in terms of a very large event with a large event with nearly 100 people, multiple different efforts in terms of having coffee and drinks, and also it was Fest, and then a couple significant events in the October and November timeframe where we took those issues and with a lot of feedback identified solutions and strategies for that. So further elaborated on purpose and engagement. The rest of it is pretty similar to the draft you saw that the Downtown Leadership Group looked at, and the report is really structured around the 4 goals. And going to page 33 of 220, the first goal, make our downtown streets safe and easy to use. Again, focuses on a variety of the safety issues, and I just want to insert kind of a philosophical component that is through this whole plan, is taking a look at pragmatic, quick, inexpensive ideas that we can try on. So, for example, in this goal area, the idea of a bulb out, where you have a site both to pedestrians and from pedestrians to vehicles. So you'll have a number of recommendations for intersections from Ohio, Maine, to Tamegee. But the thought is, let's first give this a try, say, at Ohio. That's not going to have the implication around turning movements, but then you'll see in the matrix that's at the end of it, even this summer, let's take some chalk with a little bit of engineering design and maybe mark out what a Maine and Tamegee bulb out can look at. And then we've actually already identified a number of truck drivers that would be willing to kind of experiment with us and try out a few turning movements. And we would do this early some morning, in the after doing a little bit of design in terms of what a bulb out could look at. So I just wanted to give you a sense that through this we looked for things that we could try on. If they worked, move forward, do more. If it didn't work, move on to the next idea. So you have goal 1, which is make our downtown streets safe and easy to use. And again, format is a little bit of discussion about why this matters, background. Again, you might recall in the November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we talked about safety. We met with CDOT, and then we talked about various specific elements, including bulb outs, signalization, and I might acknowledge to you, we've already had the signalization with CDOT, and they indicated to us that they would be moving forward. I think we're trying to verify whether that has actually already happened. We saw crews in the other day actually working on those boxes, but I can't verify to you that that's been done. They said they would send us an email. We talked about the bike network. We talked about doing a assessment of downtown parking, and we've incorporated that in kind of our draft budget, is doing a parking assessment when we're really maxed out in terms of traffic in July.
The question I had with with parking, were we going to use sort of the 3x3 area, or were we going to use the larger area in terms of a parking assessment? You know, we actually have three different things that we got. We've got essentially CBD that is one area that we use as a region. There's the area that we sort of extended out, which runs roughly from Colorado to Spruce.
Yeah.
And then there was the final one, which was sort of larger, that was proposed of things we looked at with the community builders at that point. Sort of what scope of area are we looking at this point? Because that obviously makes a difference in cost, and I would assume assumptions we go into.
I think we'd be looking at Main Street, and we'd be looking at the 3 blocks, between Main Street and Colorado, and particularly where we have parallel parking, we can maximize some additional parking with nickel parking. So particularly that area. And I think we'd probably go at least 1 block west as well. And so,
In that same area, let's see, it's page 10 on the 33 on the packet, but it indicates that it says the Colorado Department of Transportation crash data and feedback from the community suggests the recorded and safety of Gunnison downtown streets is a key issue. But it seems to me between 2006 and 2015, 95 crashes at intersection 44, non-intersection, that's quite substantial. But CDOT doesn't see it that way.
it depends on your lens.
Yeah, right.
From our perspective, when we hear about it, read about it in the paper, or somebody walks into one of our stores and talks, it feels really real from a CDOT standpoint, comparing us to other community, we're relatively safe. Saying that, though, we do have, I think the report talks to that, we have really a love-hate relationship with wide roads. We love our wide roads, but at the same time, it creates a challenge to cross. So I think that's something else that we talked about with CDOT, that if you just look at the data, we're a community. When we look at individual issues and when we talk to our community, I think that's being a responsive government. We got to listen to those real issues and in factor wide roads. That is a little bit different than some of our other communities that we compare ourselves to.
Well, and we talked about a lot, especially with community builders, that the perception of not being safe can also affect people's usage, and their behavior. So if it's perceived that Highway 50 is dangerous to cross, people won't cross it. They'll go, they'll use a different way. So
just acknowledge the police department and their own business planning. They kind of said, you know what, from a data standpoint, and officers are typically pretty data driven. We don't see it in the data, but the real thing is if people feel unsafe, that's what we need to focus on and change that perception. And there's some reality there too, perception. So anyway, as I'm going through this, I'm just kind of highlighting, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please jump in and direct us. I just wanted to kind of direct you, make sure you and the public were comfortable with kind of the content that's in this. The second goal on page 39 of 220, create a vibrant and authentic downtown that reflects our strong sense of place. And again, we talked a little bit of the history. This is kind of the area where we looked at specific buildings and said what you like, what you don't like. A lot of what people liked were some of our historical buildings. This is where we talk about housing. And actually Alex Joyce, who helped write and think about this, is going to be in town tomorrow, and we're going to bring a little bit. We have an RFP, and Steve had to run an RFP out on the street where we're soliciting proposals to, again, help us take this a little bit deep. Also, the notion of pushing out what we can do in the CBD to the B1 zone district so that we could have outdoor seating. And we actually have a entity that may be interested in doing this a little bit farther north on Main Street with the zone changes, so we might see some immediate interest. Other of this is creating a gateway to Gunnison. That's a little bit more of a long-term action on Main and Tamichi. A short-term example would be, let's do some little parklets, maybe on South Main, where we could have a small little deck, maybe it's an extension off of a restaurant, and do some of the things that we saw, particularly in Carbondale. Then maybe moving to goal 3, support a healthy downtown business environment that strengthens our local economy. And this talks a little bit about private investment, and that also touches the issue of zoning and height and the CB zone district, the B1. So these two sections have a little bit of overlap and connection, talking a bit about downtown events, and that I think is already happening. I think the chamber has kind of acknowledged areas they could begin to have some impact. I think it's in their strategic plan, and they're already giving some good thought, and I'll mention later, participated in a lot today, and they also want to jump into a collaborative process with the chamber, working on events along with a variety of other things. Then goal 4, something we spent quite a bit of time on with Western, which was to strengthen and enhance the connection between Western and the community. There are a lot of components of this, and it's leading to a lot of interesting things as we work with Western on their strategic plan, but kind of the major physical element of this is a connection on Ohio Street, Western to Main Street, but also provide a template for further connecting to 11th and providing a strong east-west urban trail system. And there's the potential to talk further, about how do we connect Van Tile to what would be a new Signal Peak trail system. So that's a big chunk of 4. It's not all of 4, and you begin to see some concepts. And again, just to remind you, you gave us direction to also put an RFP out on the street for how much the design work would be for that Ohio Street connection. And we anticipate, again, you get a sense of the profile on page 57 of 220. We've got plenty of street there. The simple thought would be we have a sidewalk, we have some landscaping. This probably doesn't reflect what we eventually would be doing. And we'd have a discussion with homeowners along Ohio to really refine this. But the thought, having an 8-foot wide sidewalk, we might need to push the curb out. Our goal would be to avoid eliminating big trees and creating an appropriate buffer between this 8-foot wide sidewalk and adjacent property, along with responding to kind of the original issue behind this, which was when we were talking to Western students, trying to provide some level of low lighting focused on the trail, so it does create a sensitivity in a corridor that connects Western and Main Street. So what this eventually looks like, I think, will be subject to discussions with homeowners on Ohio. There will be a price for this, and we will be rolling up our sleeves and trying to get creative with how to pay for the first phase of this. But that will be after we, again, work with homeowners on Ohio, come up with the concept. We also want to do this in partnership with Western. And probably one of the ideas is working with Western on the lighting, on both the design, but I think also hearing directly from students in terms of the why behind this, as we chat with community members is also important, so they can hear directly from students in terms of some of the reason and rationale for creating this east-west connection. Then as you kind of go through, you will see a discussion on implementation. And at our last Downtown Leadership Committee, we talked about April scheduling a meeting to talk about, what's the right organization to help propel this forward, to support the city? How do we leverage our existing entities, whether it's the chamber, could also be a player. And then I think getting into a discussion of what are different ways to fund this. You've heard about this acronym called TIF, which there's a lot behind, and it's complex. So that could be a financing tool, which is not a new tax, but a redirection of tax. And there's Andy, and I just want to thank her and Steve for all of their work on this while she's walking in. So that's just a reminder that discussion that we still need to have that will be part of the implementation. And I think you got a group with the downtown leadership that may morph, it may change. We may need some additional people. Maybe we need some people from our financial community to participate. But I think there's certainly a strong interest and commitment from that group to continue to work on this and propel this.
We can set up a TIF as a municipality
Yeah,
without going to the vote of the people?
You can, yes. It's complicated. And so one of the things we'll need to walk through is the process cost of that. And there's a process cost with attorneys and investment bankers, but it's not a tax, it's a redirection. It may have other strategic value as it relates to other topics, but you need to weigh that. And I think what we need to do is evaluate a number of different options, and then you need to be the judge in terms of what's appropriate for Gunnison. But when we went to Glenwood, we certainly saw examples of that, and that was one tool that worked well for them.
It takes a lot of input as well.
It does.
Setting those up, so that's
does.
good. Yes.
Yeah, it does. So, again, we'll be scheduling another meeting on this, but if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, if there's editorial things, love that too. You can certainly pass that on to Andy or I, and we can capture those editorial comments. But if substantive questions, comments, love to take it now.
In the RFP around IOS,
Yes.
one of that I know is proposed is essentially replacing the current water area with a fire pit. And one of the things that neglects that particular notion, not that it's necessarily in itself bad or that, is that is an area residue of when irrigation ditches actually ran,
Right.
and everybody stared at them in the sidewalks of Gunnison in downtown. It certainly seems to be a historical perspective, a proper place where irrigation water can be seen, somehow utilized in that setting, probably in a different way than it is currently, because I agree it probably takes up more room than it needs to at this point. But that it probably is there in terms of maintaining, we talk about maintaining the historic aspects of the community, and certainly having open irrigation ditches through your residential and commercial district is not something that most people are familiar with, and is a tradition that we ought to celebrate and have probably some signage that helps people understand why is there water flowing there other than, we like it.
Right. I think it's a good point. We chatted about that too today, that that's part of the history, the feature that's there. But can we use that in the future? Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like a way you could work both in the fire and the water, because I think we're trying to
Saying ice. Embrace their cold.
if we're gonna start
Ice water.
more of these like big winter events, we could have the fire downtown for people to stand around during night of lights and et cetera.
Yeah, I'm not saying that fire is a bad idea.
Right.
I'm just saying that somehow reworking water into the setting is more appropriate than I think what we've indicated in that document.
And we do have a draft RFP on page 94.
Yep.
And just, I may have just missed it because it's a lengthy document, but there was a lot of discussion, what was that, last week's meeting or 2 weeks ago? About lighting in town in general, not just the western corridor. Is that in there
So
somewhere?
we settled, I mean, you'll see, I believe that's,
Festival lighting for.
Yeah, I saw festival lighting, but that wasn't the discussion. I thought it would naturally go under number 5.
I don't think that is, Andy, did that get into the matrix?
Some of those comments didn't get into this
Yeah.
draft because we were focusing on the purpose and then also that outreach.
Sure.
That's definitely something that will be added into this as well.
Yeah.
So there's some typos that we need to fix and a few more details from that last leadership committee meeting that need to be added in there.
Though that, for example, we discovered we actually have a lighting professional that's worked in major metropolitan areas that actually lives here in Gunnison, and Kelly Osnes made that connection, and we're going to have a cup of coffee.
Great.
So we'll add that. Any other things?
Page 96 in the packet, I don't know what that is in the,
We got it?
but it
Scope
speaks
of
of,
service.
it's under design program sequence.
Yep.
Second paragraph, module 2 will
Module
focus on 30% design level. I'm not, would you explain the implications?
That's basically the preliminary plan, so you'll have the grading and drainage and utilities that will be preliminary in context. We'll set forth basically the foundation to build, or blueprint to build the site upon.
So what is the 30%?
30% is, we could call it preliminary, but engineers generally call it 30%.
Oh, it's a term then, it's a.
30%
Oh, we're gonna take
design,
this,
right?
take
Design?
30% off.
Yeah, no. It's like if you were designing a house and you were first looking at the concept plan, which might be 30%, but then when you hand your plans into Eric, construction drawings, well, that might be 5%, and you might still have some shop drawings in it.
Well, then in yellow on the next page, it talks about the 90%.
Right.
Only. So
That's, we're ready to rock and roll.
I understand the implications of that. Thank you.
The way I look at it is it's like, what are you going to have as a base foundation, then what are you going to develop on top of it?
Right. And also there's an element of phasing with this, obviously, and we're trying to figure out, can we do, for example, a couple features on the west side of Iowa, make that work within a budget. However, the streetscape might be more expensive to actually build, and that's got to wait before we spend more time on 90% design and construction.
Thank you.
Are there going to be art pieces at the Iowa Park?
There could be, absolutely, and that was part of it too, and that was another detail that probably is not in the matrix, is really aggressively going after a arts district and playing off the arts district. It's already in Crested Butte, but creating a presence for ourselves here.
Yeah, I like junior Western students doing the sculpture or something like that. Really, really cool, I think. Kind of having that connection. Yeah, they could build a fire pit.
The mural on the wall at IOF, was also a point of discussion. A lot of people, it's beautiful. People take pictures of it, and I think Dan mentioned he actually popped some, not paint, but a coating on it to protect it a couple years after it was created. But does that stay? Does that get rejuvenated? I think that's something we could look at in the specific process for IOF.
We actually used to have a mural committee that I was on years ago. It was one of my subcommittees of Art Center Board. And that is a very badly placed mural as far as are concerned. Anything south-facing is just going to deteriorate, and you're never going to have a healthy mural on a south-facing wall. So,
Yeah, the murals are in there.
Yeah.
That's 28 years old.
I know, it's done great.
Yeah, the other concept that's in it is, Eric Verschoes, the building owner, was potentially blowing that wall out so you could have seating looking out over IOF. IOF and kind of energize that space. So that was another concept. Right. Yeah, that's easier said than done. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
More than a sledgehammer.
I think somebody needs this instructional. I would suggest that.
Any other, on either the report or RFP?
I think whoever put it together needs to be complimented. I thought it was very, very, very well done, informative and easy to read. Lengthy, but it was easy to read. So
Great.
Congratulations to
Behind Clear Digital and community builders. But I think the key point we just want to, I think, it doesn't always happen, is the ideas in this didn't come from consultants, it didn't come from staff. It came out of the community effort. So.
I know we have some people in the audience associated with that. Does anybody have any other comments?
I was excited to see it in full color.
I might just acknowledge Heidi and Kelly went down to West Elk Word. So you'll hear a nice little radio piece on Saturday around the project.
Well, we appreciate the work you've done. You personally, so thank you.
Thank you.
Only formal thing for tonight on this is, are you comfortable with us issuing an RFP as Frank? Clarifications made on IOF Park.
Might want to change the date of the RFP to
Yep.
28.
They've already been.
Okay, good. I have a friend who's 80. She says, born on the 29th. I'm only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's comfortable to send this out. Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other further business tonight?
No formal business. We will call the regular session adjourned at, okay, 6:03. The lights are all wrong on that clock from right now. Just off for me.
Of course, I'm off half the time anyway. Anyway, I know other people in the room, did you have anything that you were interested in bringing before council?
We live on a mile.
Just
There he
curious.
is.
While we were along on the process. Excited that you guys want to keep the trees. That's
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
You got beautiful landscaping.
The idea is to create, as best as we can, a winter easy access route, which means that you want it to be free of trees on the south side. And that's why it would be, the tentative suggestion is to be on the north side only, so that it gets full sun. And then there are appropriate other things along with it that would be, involve property owners as well as the community.
We discussed lighting on that path at the last meeting and making sure it was down, not shining in anyone's face. Definitely lighting that was designed for pedestrians and cyclists, not to shine up in your windows or.
Happen as long as the trees are there.
That's true.
And, in some places where there may not be screening, some property owners may, some level, some others may want less. It sort of depends on the individual property owners. So, in our preliminary discussions, we certainly are looking at property owners along that region having adequate say and comments and some choices as well, hopefully.
Process, Mr. Mayor, we're soliciting proposals for design professionals to kind of take us to the next level of design. But as part of that, it would involve an engagement process with neighbors in the community to now drill down and talk about what makes sense for you, what makes sense in terms of achieving the goals of this. And I think we can find make sure this is an amenity both for the neighborhood and the community. That would be our goal.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Do we need a break for anybody at this point? Okay. We'll move on to,
Thank you
some on
the financial report.
financial report. See if you can be some X again, Ben.
Well, I did provide a lengthy financial, this is just for the council's fiduciary duty for review of the appropriateness of expenditures and so forth. Again, I'll give my normal spiel that all of this data, including underlying invoice data, is available to you, and also the members of the public to come and inspect our records in finance, and that's both with law, but also we just want to have an open door, and so anytime anybody wants to inspect our records, we're happy to have folks look at that. So there is a detailed report included in your packet, the revenue and expense details. We did have a few departments that were slightly over budget on 2017. We're still working through the budget because we're accruing expenses and revenues to the state until the auditors arrive in April. But they're pretty minor amounts. We have some reasons for each of those. And the street maintenance we talked about in October, we really just brought that up to what we had spent. We blew out our budget by January 13th, as we recall from last year, so that wasn't a surprise. So overall,
We'll probably find some savings this year.
Yeah. So far so good this year. So there were some minor budget overages, and you can see the details on that. Our investment reports were slightly underperforming on the investments, but that is to be expected as interest rates rise. We're still locked into investments that have not yet matured, but doing quite well, and we've exceeded our budget by $45,000 in 2017, so that's a good thing. So at least our interest rates are going. And then you'll see in the packets there's a check register and your purchase card report, so you can see all the expenditures. And I just welcome you again. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer those in finance. From a sales tax perspective, we ended the year quite well. We're still compiling December receipts, so the year ended up, but through November we were 6% up. You'll recall that in the budget projections we had anticipated 5%, so up is a good thing. So
what does that 1% reflect?
1% is about $600,000, so it makes a significant dent in things. So that's always so. As you recall in the budget process, we kind of take those revenues that we should be up this year, and that's what allows us to deficit spend in the budget is we take the savings from the prior year and deploy those resources in the following year. So rather than betting on the come, so to speak, we use the resources once we have them in hand and make sure that we're identifying what the priorities are, especially related to your strategic results, so that we can see all the budget requests, look at them together, and identify what the most important things are, because there never is a to do all these great things that we have planned. So sales tax is a positive. We are, again, a little bit hesitant with the economy just because it's a long period of economic growth. So the budget only includes 2.5% up for 2018, and we'll see how that progresses as we go through the year, and I will continue that to you. So I think that's the highlights of that report, and I'd entertain any questions that you might have.
So these can the receipt numbers through
November.
Yeah, which would be reported to us in January.
Yes.
So
we get them in December, but we're putting them together
in January. So.
And we are behind on December just because, we have a huge volume because on normal month, you always get the monthlies, but in December we get the monthlies, the quarterlies, and the annual filers during a significant amount of time. If you saw the mail on her desk last week, you know what I'm talking about, so.
Yeah, I would guess that that's, what, several hundred that are just annual.
I don't know off the top of my head, but we have about 850 businesses, so I'd say that's probably in the realm of
200 or so would be annual. Questions from council?
I read every page.
I won't have understood
Each number.
And just as a follow-up to that, I mean, this is your report.
Yep.
Tell me how much or how little you want in there. I want isn't to read it line by line, but if you did have an area of interest, I want you to be able to drill down into that and kind of see, what are we spending money on? If you have a citizen request about this or that, you have the tools to be able to look at that. And of course, finance is always available for questions as well.
Well, I appreciate the extensiveness of the report, and I think, yeah, just for transparency and ease of answering questions, and the fact that this is all in the packet for the public, right? Is this one? Yes.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's actually a major, it's important to give you whatever information you want so you can exercise your fiduciary, but just having this so anybody can look at any expenditure within the city, I think is valuable.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We actually have very little information that potential. The two big areas are the activities of utility customers, whether they're paying or not, and how much they're using on an individual basis, and then sales tax by individual. Get market analysis information that you're not privy to, but other than that, we can share a lot of information. And I've been having some conversation with Russ that we may talk about having sort of a summit or an economic, state of the city type report prior to budget that may be helpful to us as we enter the budget process and may also be informative to the public as well.
I wonder if you could just tag that along with the People's Choice Awards with the chamber, kind of like you did last year.
I was the life of the party, right?
You can be the judge whether a drinking event and a financial report
Everybody
go
loves
together.
accountants.
I love
no comment. So we have 5 years there as trends on the year.
Yep. So positive trends over all those years, so that's always a good thing, but it does help to realize that that doesn't always happen and we shouldn't count on that. So, I think we are always trying to stay on that line of being over conservative versus, too aggressive. I feel like 2.5% is reasonable, allows us to continue to deploy our resources to do what you all want to do, but not be out over our either.
Thank you. Does the city attorney have any words of wisdom for us tonight?
Oh, I do not have any words of wisdom. I was trying to come up with something, but I wasn't prepared for that.
You never know, do you?
You never know.
All right. Russ.
Mayor joined me for a broadband meeting on February 14th, and I think what we're finding is there's been a group within the Valley meeting with Region 10 over the last couple of years. Some interesting twists and turns in terms of participation. But I think one of the things I think we realized from this meeting is a couple of things have just changed in the last couple of years. One, which I think is a very good thing, because I think of the competitive pressure on CenturyLink, ISPs now are able to buy broadband and bandwidth cheaper, and that was one of the original propositions. There's also, I think, was a good discussion about, and I think this is still a work in progress, of how do we fully utilize the fiber that does exist, both in the city-county network plus what particularly IC Connects has in terms of the hospital is looking at a build, and there's also interest by REA to provide connectivity to that building. So one thing from a pricing standpoint is just taking stock of how that has changed. Western receiving specific pricing on an RFP they have out on the street. So we want to kind of take a look at that. How does the Region 10 system really compare now to what ISPs are offering? I think we also agreed we want to continue to maintain the strategic pressure on CenturyLink that I think has come through the Region 10 process, and that's important. We do, and I did have Mike kind of confirm what has been purchased and what are we locked into. Basically, the CNL equipment, which was our spend in Gunnison, is physically here. It's actually connected now at Western. It can be moved, and I think that most likely would still be the recommendation, is to simply move that equipment, put it at the police department. I think it has some strategic value in terms of having a CNL and the message that sends to CenturyLink, and it may still have, I think, a practical value if other ISPs come, or providing connectivity going west to REA and potentially helping us provide connectivity eventually to our wastewater treatment plant. So it was an interesting meeting where I think we're finding just things are moving fast, and I think that's just IT world in general. Things are moving quickly, and we need to take stock of how that has evolved and changed. I think there's a sincere interest in making sure that we're not doing anything to hurt ISPs that have invested in our community. And I think the ISPs have said, I might not mind competing for some of the anchor institutions' business. And so Western said, well, we got an RFP on the street, and you're more than welcome to compete. So we're going to be taking a look at that. Next, just want to, with Andy in the room and Steve, I believe you also helped with this, want to say thank you for a grant that we in fact did receive with Safe Routes to School. That's worth over $400,000 and some money for a high school Andy. And then the rest is you can but I also want to acknowledge that went to a meeting this morning that the lodging community is attempting to organize themselves and provide a voice in terms of their interests. And the meeting started with a little bit, first with snow removal. I think with the update I gave you at the last, I think that has alleviated some of the specific concerns. They're definitely interested in chatting with the TA, and there is, I think, a big gap right now, and I think some communication and regular communication is really important between the TA and our lodging community. But it was a constructive meeting. They emphasized that they need to roll up their sleeves with the ski company and the TA in a constructive, positive way. And again, I think we've already helped make the Gunnison Getaway more approachable and usable by our hotel community. So I think it's something we'll hear more about in the future. I just wanted to acknowledge that they've had an initial meeting, and I think they have an interest in continuing to meet and also work with our chamber. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Does questions for us, or I have one inquiry. The private road runs north in front of 6 Points and connects with the curve of Colorado. No longer has a stop sign on it.
Private road that runs north.
Yeah,
Or south.
and the car dealer.
In the car dealer.
Yeah.
There was a stop sign.
There's a stop sign there at the junction of that stop sign.
Just disappeared. Well, that's good, because Public Works we have some time in there now, are shifting gears to sign replacement, so.
I saw a very odd sign today. You're talking about signs I'd never seen before, and it was right in front of the Gunnison Art Center, but it's literally hidden if you're heading north from South Main. It's hidden by an, and it's got a person it shows a person crossing, but it's so silly because you can't see it. It's literally hidden by the eave of a commercial building. No, first time today, I've probably passed it 1,000,001 times. It just, not to interrupt, but I thought, what a strange sign.
Okay.
And I thought,
Great.
you mentioned no stops at the Slaughterhouse Road, and,
That is deliberate by the county.
okay, I thought that was a county sign.
It is a county sign. The county, at our inquiry with Russ, basically removed the obstructions that made it a blind corner and went in and removed a batch of willows.
But they also,
Yes, the sign got hit, as I remember it, ended up flat and then sort of propped up for a while, and the county decided it wasn't.
that's a interesting corner now, then.
Yes.
People thinking that there's a stop sign there when they see a vehicle coming,
Yeah,
and there is none.
that is. But it is, at least now you have some visibility.
That sounds like it's a removal.
That is. Anybody from staff? Steve? Dan? Andy? Erica? Quiet tonight.
I have one.
All right, Elizabeth.
So this Friday is Western's third preview day, so we're gonna have quite a few students and their parents coming to tour the school. There's a activity fair in the afternoon, and we have 2 each semester, so the next one is the 31st of March on a Saturday. The last 2 preview days for this term, and then also spring break is coming up for Western students. And other than that, nothing.
The basketball team, the men's basketball team,
Oh yeah, they just went to the RMAC conference.
tonight.
They did, yeah. I saw they got a police escort out of town.
Yes. That's what I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
That's a celebration.
Yeah.
They were being brought down.
Elementary school came out, and the police escorted them out of town.
Neat.
And they should be broadcasting the weekend.
Yeah, they've been doing better than several seasons, so that's really
Yes.
I asked my 4th grader if he got to high five them on the way out, and he said he was inside making
Okay.
Vinegar and soda.
Should we continue down the line?
Might as well.
First off, so Matt Quinn sent us a letter asking if we would support the Conservation Stewardship Conference that's coming here in October. So I'm just curious if we can get that as an agenda.
I'm gonna chat with them.
Yeah, we chat about, figure out how we can move forward with that. I think it's a good opportunity to get some sustainably minded folks into town. I think it makes sense about 300 people. That's a pretty good opportunity.
Mallory, if you're asking, so that's a request to get some time in front of council. Is there a council to do that? I got an email too from them.
I don't know anything about it, but I certainly glad to listen.
I
Listen.
thought you found all, oh, was it just the 3 of us?
I got it.
Yeah.
You're on it.
I think I saw a copy of it as well.
Western's looking to host a conservation conference. This year's theme would be diversity. They've held it in Montana for a few years and also in Arkansas. So it's a land use conference, and I think we're pretty primed for public lands, and so he's looking for some sponsorship money from the city. So we'd be, put our logos on everything and have banners up, and maybe Galwick's even offered to maybe speak if it comes here.
I'll talk anytime anyway.
So if nobody is opposed to that.
Yeah, I
Thumbs up on
need to know some more details, but certainly we've got to consider that, and I know early sponsorships are important because that helps you get other ones. On that note, did we have any follow-up from the AmeriCorps people that you had a meeting with? Or?
Yeah, we did meet Eric with them, and a little bit of a matchmaking in terms of, a project and a student. So we talked about a couple of different ideas that could be aligned with the city and your strategic efforts, and I would assume she'd want to get back if she has a specific idea.
I guess one question, is most of that money to support the student in AmeriCorps come from the feds, or do we have to put in some as well? Or do we know?
Yeah, I think the question is depends. It sounds like they have federal dollars to help offset the costs, kind of the living costs, and provide a stipend. The local sponsor be able to provide other things, but they were also conscious that, in other words, offering them a salary like an internship, that would create an inequity within their department, so it didn't sound like they actually wanted it. So it sounds like the dollars, I got the impression the dollars were coming from a federal source to help provide a stipend for living costs.
Couple other things, big week in sustainability for me. I attended Green Drinks at Montagna's up in Crested Butte. This was the second. Taryn Mead, who's in sustainability at Western, started this group to get local business owners and also government stakeholders talking sustainability. So we listened to Matt Fire, who is a sustainability director at CBMR. He talked a bit about what their goals are, and they're doing a lot of work on their recycling program. They've got pretty big goals. I don't remember where I wrote them down though, but they are crushing it. Their goal is to reduce electric use by, I believe it was 12%, and they're actually down 33% already. A lot of it is things like not using their copier as much and things of that nature that are
paperless.
Yeah, exactly. To Karen Hoskin, who owns Montagna, talk about everything they're doing there, buying offsets from a different power company. She also started Zoetica. They have reusable container packages that they sell, so you take your stainless thermos and straw and utensils and etc. everywhere. Pretty innovative and cool, and the thought behind that is to prevent waste rather than divert it. So it's like stop the trash before it happens, before you need to figure out how and where to recycle it or throw it away. Also met with John Cowles from the county and Brooke Moran from Western, Town of Mountain Butte facilities guy, Town of Crested Butte facilities, and we are hoping to develop a valley-wide collaborative on sustainability so that we can all go in on resources together and be a lot more effective. That was a really great meeting. Thing that came out of that was wondering just like about the building recycling plans up in the town of Crested Butte. You're required to have a plan for how much waste you're diverting or recycling, which actually saves a ton of money for builders and dump fees, and the city takes care of the pickup and everything. They just need to leave it at the curb. So cool. Looking forward to the next meeting of that. Also attended the first part of the conservation series up at Western. Bunch of different land management groups and hunting groups talking about our land use and North American practices and how they benefit our wildlife and communities. Missed the second one, but the third one is Thursday at 6:30 at the Ice Lab. That's about it, I think. Lots of interesting stuff. All around.
I missed the fireman's pension meeting, so Bob will have to fill you guys in on that. The email we got from Dave regarding electric rates has helped me out. I don't know if anybody else has been getting people contact them on that, but between that, the snow removal, and the extravagant fire truck that we approved, that's about the only complaints that I've got. And some people have appreciated too, pretty much all that I had. I really did appreciate that. We got from Dave.
He's going to modify it. We just got updated numbers. REA is also raising their rates, which makes our rates look even different, but he's going to update that with the new REA rates.
I did notice one, and I don't know whether you want to include it as an REA or not. Certainly from a commercial standpoint, when we had transmission problems with our substation 20 years ago, approximately at this point, there's a lot of difference between an hour outage in a residence where people are away from work and losing your entire lunch money at a restaurant
Because you can't do a transaction.
is gone. There is far more responsiveness and demand needed and reliability needed by most commercial people compared with residential. There are some exceptions that have healthcare issues, but most businesses cannot afford an hour, let alone we had 3 to 4 hours out in before. So I think maybe people have forgotten that. Certainly there's a lot of new businesses since then, but that might be something to realize that there is a reliability question which is far more valuable to a commercial interest than residential.
I also anticipate you're going to have people coming in on March 13th. Ben has put out an updated notice and bills, but I still anticipate you'll come, we'll have the public non-agenda, totally choice. If they're here, they took the time.
Yes, and it's important for them to have an opportunity to ask questions, vent, et cetera. But by no means I don't see that replacing public hearing in any sense.
On the 14th, I was privileged to sit in on the financial department strategic plan process. Got lots of good information from people who are businesses that take our tax money, distribute it to us. I think it needs more work for Ben, but it was a very good meeting.
Yeah, it's very constructive, very positive too.
Yes, very positive. Public service and being a good servant to the public. Let's see, this week, and last week, Jim mentioned the Fireman Pension Fund. It was a short meeting because of the concert that followed up the meeting, but we voted to leave monthly stipend for retirees at the same amount. I don't know if you've written your report yet, but
I'm working on the minutes, and the report will be given to you at the next meeting.
Yeah, we have an agenda.
okay, and so that's at $450 a month, and then death benefit is $1,000, and the fiber is $225 a month. So we voted on that, and even though the volatility in the last 30 days in the market, we still came out quite nicely on our investments. And then Region 10, I asked that Erica place at your place a report on Region 10, and I'm not sure how yours is stapled, but on the inside, second page, I guess, turn there, it's under Business Loan Fund. You can see that new loans for 2017, Gunnison had over half of the loans that were distributed out of a $1.9 million loan amount, and I thought that was really for our Gunnison area, and most of those were businesses in the Gunnison, city of Gunnison area. And then right on the other side of the loan, by county, again, $682,139, representing 43% of the total for Region 10. Other sets of information that you can look at, I won't go into the whole report, but I thought it was very telling about how well some areas can treated and how well they've done with Region 10. So I believe our investment in being a member of the city and we've had one last thing on Region 10. Opportunity to the building that Region 10 owns in Montrose is was a former nursing home, and so at this point we were landlords, and it took a lot of staff time away from their duties to be in charge of maintenance and all kinds of other things. With the Department or the Mental Health office in Montrose had a building that was not meeting their needs. The building that Region 10 owns does meet their needs. So we voted to make a swap with them, provide $800,000 plus dollars in exchange for our building, which would pay off the loan for Region 10 and provide $400,000 for rebuilding and situating remodeling the new building into. So if you're familiar with Montrose, you might know where the Visitor Center, the courthouse area is. It's a building right on that same street. It's on Cascade. It's 140 Cascade. So move down the street, and a much better location and probably a better building to serve the needs of Region 10. So we voted to go ahead and consummate that deal, and so I hope that we're supposed to have it remodeled and in the building by mid-May. So get another quick plan moving forward. And this discussion that we've already talked about. And then the Gunnison Valley Foundation, again, emphasis on land banking. We have a meeting with Russ and the Gunnison Valley Foundation on Friday. Talk about some other land banking possibilities. And the other issue of interest maybe is Rumble, our Rocky Mountain Biolab owns some property, and if you've gone to Gothic, as you approach the top of the hill there at Mount Crested Butte, before you drop over into the road there, they own that property. It's a long, narrow, kind of strangely shaped piece of property, but they plan to put some facilities on that to employees for Rumble, especially for the winter, and they have both long-term and short-term employee housing in mind. We're still working on that plan. So, busy week. 2 weeks.
You guys got my extensive notes on CMA legislative workshop and then our policy committee meeting. So I'm not going to go line by line on that. Huh? You sure did. It's in your packet. Yeah. It's the 4, 5, 6, I take a lot of notes. 7 pages of your packet. Some of it is incoherent because you're typing real fast as people are talking. Go back and improve it. But highlights some things. Governor Hickenlooper spoke to a proposed change in infrastructure funding that's going around. It's in Congress right now being discussed, and could be very impactful to municipalities like ours, and that is basically cutting federal funding from where they have in the past funded around 80% for infrastructure projects. Congress has discussed taking it down to about 20%. So it's dramatic and it's scary. And on that note, I forwarded Russ an email today. There is the National League of Cities. Irma Diggs was there and spoke. She's the federal advocacy director. She spoke to this scary thing that's happening in Congress and basically encouraged. She talked to us twice throughout the almost long meeting, really urging municipalities to reach out to Congress to identify projects that are, in or proposed projects and basically lay it all out there and just say, these are our funding issues, these are our funding sources, just detail of the situation when it comes to infrastructure needs in all our communities. So I forwarded that to Russ today, he's forwarded it to David, so I definitely think we need on that bandwagon. It's not good news. Yeah, so I think that I won't read through all the Senate bills and the House bills, but that was the biggie for me. And then they talked a lot about the Olympics, which really doesn't impact us very much. So.
Oh, you're talking about the I-70 corridor?
Yeah, I-70 corridor. Yeah. And what else did I have? I told you about this. Street striping. I know it's only February, but I mean, we have very exposed crosswalks and stop bars already in town. Main and Tamichi, it's always, a rough intersection for that paint coming off. And so just putting it on our radar as soon as possible, at least get crosswalks and stop bars painted because those are dangerous. Again, Main and Tamichi, I watched a visitor today, obviously, so they didn't know where to stop. They get to Main and Tamichi and it's just getting real faded and they just don't know where to make the stop. So I think that's all I have. Otherwise, you can read my lengthy notes. You did not read it. You just
It was in the unamended packet, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was today's packet that came through. I'm pointing at her when she's gone.
Yeah.
She's not around.
Thank you for your and thank you for showing me. Hopefully you found it valuable.
It was very valuable. Yeah, very informative. Got to meet a lot of different mayors and such from other municipalities. Yeah.
Those are probably just minor affairs.
Yeah.
The only question I had is, do they believe that somebody's going to put in the essential tasting joints for marijuana?
There was that was a discussion, but there was no action taken, so it was still
Up in the air.
Still up in the air. Yeah.
Although they're talking about liquor a lot.
Yeah.
Liquor.
One follow-up note on that. If you look at the president's proposal for 1.5 trillion, he's talking federal government doing $1 out of 7 of that in infrastructure. So there's a lot of pressure on there. A couple of items, obviously the last 10 days I've been sort of not very active, taking care of my eye, so appreciate people covering things that I might have attended with you or instead of you, so I appreciate that very much. A couple of items coming down the line. It is now getting to the point of drafting the community relations section. That'll be done in approximately 2 weeks for then a campus-wide discussion of the entire strategic plan. So if you have any additional thoughts on that, please share them in terms. And I think that the key thing is looking at potential community resources that can be leveraged with university resources to do things. I think one of the areas that is potentially useful is recycling. Obviously, the more coordinated that we become as a valley, I think the better position we become. I want to emphasize that. Second, have had discussions with, as Erica is well familiar with, together the program for students to travel to India this May and June and visit the community of Majapahit. I'm quite I'm close. But Majapahit is in mountainous region of India and have done some preliminary conversations through the students and John Hofstorper for notion of a possible sister city relationship. On our next meeting, students from that group will be here to talk about potential and opportunities. Certainly, it is one of the things that can be a joint partnership for us and the university. It does require a municipal sponsorship, and there will be more coming down the line on that. So, wanted you to be aware of that. The final thing is that there has been some interest in potential of student involvement in the walkway project, both at undergraduate level and at a master's level. The extent of that is probably strictly a supporting role given our timeline and what we're trying to do. If it was a longer timeline, they may have had more opportunity, but there's a great deal of interest in that. So I think that there's additional opportunities to go forward on that. So I have one other thing. I received in the mail that there is essentially emergency training around pipelines that is going to be held in Gunnison on April 6th at West. I will be out in the community. They're looking for local government official participation in terms of welcome. Did you do a welcome, Jim? No. This is actually, they are running I don't know what level of simulation. I have the form here that is for responsibility and resources to respond in a pipeline emergency, working with the operator, proper notification, emergency responders and functions to it. As near as I can tell, it's 2 hours with a free lunch, and attending essentially 11:30 on the 6th of April, which I believe is what, Friday? So, if someone is interested in following up on that, I think that possibly, certainly some staff, or Scott, someone of that nature ought to participate as well, since it's right here in our backyard. It is, to my knowledge, obviously, it's put out by the people who run pipelines and oversee pipelines.
This is an annual safety for the guys every year.
Yeah. And they have a local official portion at times, so, in terms of this one. So, yes.
One other quick opportunity, just made me think about it, Mr. Mayor. Annually, we have a simulator that, it's a shooting simulation, where our police officers are going through training, dealing with a variety of different scenarios. I've done it a couple of times, very educational for me. It's kind of sobering to be honest. And Keith offered, interested in doing that. You know, we can arrange that so it's not impacting training time for our officers. If that's something you wanted to participate in, it's a simulation, but it is very lifelike. You know, it sounds fun, but it's some makes you think about what our officers deal with, the reaction time. So if that's something you are interested in, I can connect you to Keith and he could find a time that would work for you. And having an officer on the simulation can be as short as 30 minutes, 45 minutes, kind of get the experience of it. And that'll be here starting March 1st, and we'll be here for 2.
Any other topics? Hearing none, I think we are done for this evening. Usually we drive everybody off, but